In the farthest reaches of the countryside, where the paved roads ended and dirt paths carved through dense, whispering forests, there was a village no one spoke of openly. Tucked deep between two barren hills, this place had no name on any map, yet it was known to the locals as Qarya Majnuna, the cursed village. For Reza, it was just another piece of folklore, tales meant to scare children into behaving, until he drove past it one fateful night. Reza, a young journalist with a taste for sensational stories, had spent years weaving through Iran's remotest regions, digging up old legends and spinning them into articles that paid his bills. One late autumn evening, he found himself speeding along an unfamiliar road, guided only by his car's feeble headlights, aware of nothing but the dark forest enclosing the narrow path. The GPS on his phone had lost its signal 2 hours ago. The night was blacker than usual, moonless, with thick clouds overhead. As he glanced at the dashboard clock, now reading 1:47 a.m., an unsettling realization crept over him. The road seemed endless. No landmarks, no signs, not even a stray animal. Just as he contemplated stopping to try and find his bearings, he noticed an old signpost half covered in vines. Slowing his car to a crawl, he squinted to make out the faded text. Though unclear, one word stood out: Qarya, the cursed village. Reza grinned to himself. How convenient. Could fate be delivering the urban legend straight to his doorstep? A chill passed through his body, but he brushed it off. After all, weren't these stories just embellishments passed down the generations? A certain excitement burned now in his chest. If he could photograph this abandoned village and trace the source of its haunting myths, he'd have a story powerful enough to leave his editors stunned. He turned onto the dirt path leading towards the village. The entrance to Qarya Majnuna was marked by a crumbling archway, almost lost within the encroaching wilderness. Vines trailed over its stones like skeletal fingers, and etched deep into its surface were verses in an ancient script Reza didn't recognize. His headlights illuminated a crude wooden sign nailed beside the arch. Written in sloppy chalk were the words, Bazambas, don't go back. Reza smirked, though it felt forced. Someone in the nearby town must have added this for effect, knowing fools like him would come looking for spooks. But as he passed under the archway, the air seemed to change. Even within the insulated space of his car, he felt heavier somehow. The wind outside carried a faint sound, a low hum, melodic yet chilling, as if a human voice were trapped in perpetual moaning.
Come on, Reza. It's just your imagination.
The village came into view, splayed out ahead like the skeleton of something long dead. Roofs sagged, walls crumbled, and each house seemed swallowed by shadow. The windows were dark, like empty eye sockets, and the wooden doors hung ajar, groaning faintly with every gust of wind. He parked the car in the center of what must have once been a square. His hands oddly trembled as he reached for his camera. It felt colder in here than it should, far colder than his thermostat had indicated moments ago. Even his breath formed faint mists as he exhaled. Still, determination pushed him forward. The village, though derelict, was eerily pristine. Chairs remained on porches. A broken lantern stubbornly swung on its hook. And upside-down clay jugs laid scattered as if the people had simply gotten up and vanished mid-drink. The silence was heavy, but not unnatural. It wasn't until Reza stepped toward the first house that he realized why the quiet disturbed him. There were no insects chirping, no birds calling, no rustling of tiny creatures in the underbrush. The world here was silent of life. His first photo was of a crumbled wall, where a single red handprint stood out starkly against the gray stone. By the time he reached the third house, he felt watched. At first, it was small things, the sense of something shifting in the reflection of his camera lens, or the way the air seemed slightly denser at his back. He laughed at himself. Maybe coming here alone in the middle of the night wasn't the wisest choice. But when he turned to walk back towards his vehicle, he saw it. A figure stood far off, cloaked in the shadows near an abandoned well. Too far to discern clearly, but undeniably there, unmoving. Though the face was lost in darkness, Reza could feel its gaze boring into his skin. Hello, he called out, voice breaking slightly. The figure didn't move. Reza took a hesitant step forward, cursing himself for acting like the leads in horror movies who made all the wrong decisions. yet he couldn't stop. Behind his fear was a gnawing, insatiable curiosity. Was this simply a squatter, someone who lived here after the village had been abandoned, or was it something else entirely? Then the figure tilted its head unnaturally far, as though questioning his presence. The movement was jerky, wrong, like an insect trying to mimic human gestures. The hairs on Reza's arms stood on end. "Okay, I think I've got enough photos for tonight," he whispered to himself, slowly backing away toward his car. But he stopped dead when the figure lifted an arm, long and taut. Reza's breath caught in his throat as the figure's arm hung in the air, casting an elongated shadow on the ground. His mind raced with possibilities. Was this an apparition or something more tangible? Slowly, he lowered his camera, realizing that perhaps retreat was the wiser choice. With his heart pounding, Reza took a step back, deciding it was time to leave the mysteries of Qarya Majnuna behind, at least for tonight.